What's up everyone, Dwayne Pedals here. In this video, I'm gonna be just talking to everyone about a really interesting topic, and it's about bike touring or bike packing while being black, or even just a minority, a person of color. And I thought I'd chat about it because I got a question. Someone who reached out to me through my YouTube channel asked me about riding across the country being black. You know, what's it like? They were planning a tour of their own to bike across the US, and they reached out, and I thought it was an interesting topic because it was something that I had to question myself on as well when I did my US tour back in 2014. So I wanted to just dig into that a little bit because I think there is a bit of a difference, you know, being a person of color like myself, being black, growing up here in the United States, being born and raised, and biking across, you know, parts of the South in the United States, all across Central America, Central US, and into the West Coast, you know, solo, unsupported. So I'm gonna try to just talk about this as in a way. So I think I wanna just take you on a journey and my decision to do it. So back in 2014, I made the choice to bike tour from the United States, New York to California. It was a 75-day trip, a little over 4,000 miles, and it was a huge impact on my life, you know. It was a way for me to, you know, experience traveling. At the time, I wanted to really go big and do something outside of my comfort zone. And I was inspired by a lot of other bike tours that I've been seeing through social media and online. You know, at the time I was sitting in my Brooklyn apartment, my arm was broken. My two fingers were broken after getting hit by a car, which I don't want to get into. But I had a lot of time to think about things, think about where I wanted the direction of my life to go. And you know, through a lot of research, I discovered bike touring as a way to travel on a low budget because, you know, I didn't have the money to fly to these places at the time. And at the same time, I wanted to experience what it was like to go on a cross-country tour. And so I did all this research, discovered American Cycling Association, who has maps that can take you all the way from New York to California. And you can check that organization. I'll leave it in the comments below in the description. But they have corridors that can go and take you touring all the way around the US, whether it's the South, the northern part of the country, from, you know, east to west, west to east, what have you. There's many ways to do it. But I think the bigger thing was being that I was black. You know, I posed the idea to my family. They were completely concerned about me doing it, and you know, they sort of planted these seeds in my mind too at the time that made me think, is this the right decision? You know, do I want to do this? Or I want to pursue this? Am I going to get killed? You know, that was the first thing that came to mind. But you know, one of the things that I realized was that, you know, you just have to sort of let that fear dissipate, right? During the time, you know, not to get into politics, this is not about politics, but, you know, Barack Obama was in office during that time. I thought about how it would be years later if Donald Trump would be in office during that time. Would my experience be different? I don't know, but it's just something I thought about, you know, when I saw the question about, you know, touring across the US being black. And so, you know, in this country, you know, we obviously deal with lots of systemic racism. That's been how it is in this country, unfortunately, for decades. I also think that, you know, economic wealth also plays a big role in how you are treated in this country, and being able to have resources to lawyers and other resources could, you know, give you an advantage, unfortunately. And so for me, I'm not gonna say that, like, you know, it was easy. I had a lot of weight on me when I made the decision to ride my bike from New York to California unsupported. You know, when you're in the experience, I feel like the fear sort of dissipates. It definitely goes away. But you know, when I started in New York, I rode through New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and I reached DC, Washington, DC, and then I realized, you know, this is Virginia, and I'm gonna be riding through West Virginia. And there were times where I stealth camped. There were times where like people approached me and asked me if I needed help. And people were super nice along the way, you know, when I got up to, throughout the entire trip. But when I approached West Virginia and I thought about the other states going forward that I needed to pass through, like, you know, Kentucky, Missouri, Kansas, my waypoint to feeling safe was when I got into Colorado, and I just felt like a huge weight lifted off of my chest. And it sucks that, you know, being Black, we have to deal with this on a regular basis, on a daily, you know, every day, you know, being a person of color, a minority in this country. But the one thing that I did realize when I was cycling, I'm not saying that, I'm not trying to shy you away and scare you away from having an experience of your own that could be beneficial and open up many doors to you in terms of fear, in terms of just like impactfulness of a trip. It's important to think about those things, you know. I feel like, you know, during my trip, my experience, I would say, I met a lot of amazing people, you know. I think there was a lot more good than evil out there when I was on my trip. You know, people were giving me food. People asked me if I wanted to stay at their place. And I had to let my guard down and become very vulnerable when I was out there on my own. And, you know, just learn to trust people, you know what I mean? I passed through areas like West Virginia, and I've had instances where, you know, I had a river rock thrown at me. I don't know if it was done intentionally or not, but obviously it hit my handlebar and I got really scared and rode into a campsite and camped for a couple of days to just get the weight off my chest of like whether or not I should continue going forward or not. I could also remember, and I'm just gonna lay this out to you and just share and be open about it, you know, like I was in, I forgot, maybe it was going into Missouri on a road where there was no one around, it was just me in this open, vast landscape. And there was a police officer who zoomed past me and then came in the other lane and came in front of me and like slowed down and just like was really shady and sketchy. And my heart started pounding, and I thought about whether or not, you know, am I going to be a victim here? Am I going to be, you know, is this going to be another one of those cases where I'm going to have an altercation with a police officer that you hear too much about in this country already? So those things were sort of happening. Those things were going through my mind as I was traveling on my bike across the U.S. And you know, it was a tough experience to deal with, right? But at the same time, I had also amazing experiences as well. And these things didn't happen every day, you know? I'm just gonna pause there for 1 second because there's a lot to touch on here, I feel like. And I'm not sure if I'm gonna capture it all in this video, but I do wanna continue like sharing my thoughts on traveling by bike, being Black in the US. And I was by myself doing all this, you know, at the time. And I did meet a few other companions along the way who were from Connecticut. My friend Ken, who ended up biking with me a little bit after Colorado, through California, and then to the end in San Francisco, which made the trip a lot more comforting, you know, being that I can share my experience with someone else at the time. But you know, it's tough, right? Because, you know, you're on this bike and, you know, we all want to just go for a ride. We want to go for an adventure. And that was my thinking, right? But in my identity, in my skin, it's not just going for a bike ride. It's not just going for a bike tour or bike packing. It sounds really cool, you know, to do that, right? And it is. It's a lot of fun, hell of a lot of fun. You know, being able to camp is a lot of fun. I stealth camped a lot of places, you know. But it's also dangerous, you know, as a Black man. Like, there were people who thought I was homeless, who literally came up to me and thought I was, you know. And I think if I can offer some advice, it, you know, look like a bike tour, you know, like I was told to tie an American flag on the back of my bike, and these are things that can help you be safe, right? Also, your clothing, like wear bright clothing, look like you're going on a bike tour, right? And just look like you're going on an adventure. And it sucks that we can't wear what we want, right? Like, what if I wanted to wear just regular clothing, like a t-shirt and board shorts? Yeah, I can totally do that, but is that going to be a different experience for me versus someone else who's not a person of color, right? So that's just like some of the things I want to touch on there. And then, on the flip side of that, there's experience I've traveled outside of the US. For instance, in Spain, solo, when I rode the Pyrenees route in Girona, Spain, all the way north up into Catalonia, and then all the way back around into Girona, Spain, which was a 4-day bike touring trip, and did that solo unsupported, and was able to stop in many different villages, cities along the way, towns along that route, and dealt with nothing but happy people who wanted to help and also ask me questions and stuff like that. Although there were a language barrier, it's just a different experience, right? Versus being in places like Europe versus here in the United States. So I think the experience is going to be a lot different for someone who is a person of color, who wants to travel by bike. But at the same time, I think, bike touring was a way for me in being black, right, is also like a way for me to become an activist. And I look at it as an initiative now where I could hopefully help someone who looks like me, rides like me, like has the same body style as I do, and see inspiration from that and make them feel comfortable in doing it themselves, So I think, it's important to be the change that you want to see, right? And I feel like that's what my mission is now, is to be that representation for someone who wants to do something like I did. And I advocate for that. I'm all about it. And I want to work with people if they have questions about my tours or something that they want to do for themselves. Reach out, because I want to hear about it. I want to be able to share my information that I've experienced with you, and hopefully you can learn something from it and feel more comfortable when you're out there. So I'm here to help, and I'm not asking for anything, so I really genuinely want people to be outdoors who don't experience these things, because I felt that bike touring was very foreign for me. Like, my family thought I was insane to go out and do this solo unsupported. But when I got back home, they talked about it to this very day, and that trip happened 10 years ago, and I continue to bike tour today. So it's raining out here. I got to go back inside, but I just wanted to chat this through with y'all. There's probably a lot more to touch on as well, obviously. I think if y'all ask questions in the comments, I can definitely expand on that. But if you're new to the channel and you're looking to go bike touring, definitely check out my website, Manual Pedal. Ooh, that's my old website, DwaynePedals.com, www.DwaynePedals.com. You'll see a lot of my bike adventures on there. I wrote a lot about it, my trip reports, and you can see the photos and my experience. You can read through written word. But if you have questions here, obviously just drop them in the comments, and like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you all in the next video. Peace out.